Let's go back to one of our developing stories where the North Gauteng High Court ordered that mine rescue services begin operations to rescue illegal miners. This in shafts 10 and 11 of the Buffelsfontein Gold Mine in Stilfontein in the northwest. The court order follows an urgent application brought by Zinzi Tom, whose brother Ayanda Tom is among the miners who remain underground. There's got more reaction now on the latest court order. We're joined by Mametlwe Sebei from Giusa. He also joins us from Lawyers for Human Rights. Mr. Sebei, good to have you on the program this evening despite these circumstances. So there have been concerns raised by civil society movements, but also political parties regarding the composition of teams to actually save people in this site. So as a leader, especially in the labor movement, what are your specific concerns about especially the efforts to retrieve some miners from underground?
We must call this what it is now. This is a Stilfontein massacre. The sheer number of bodies that are now lying trapped underground in excess of 100, as it is clear from the testimonies of community members who have viewed the video, that surfaced from the trapped miners, that just shows countless bodies in a horrific state alongside miners that are completely emaciated, dehydrated, that could rest. All the campaign of lies and fabrications by the state in a cruel attempt to really bury these miners alive. In order really to evade the responsibility in a situation where their conduct of this operation brought us to a situation of a humanitarian crisis, where they could have actually ordered these miners out with the assistance from the community. They decided to chase away the community rescue team in a situation where they know that the miners could not come out on their own without also access to food, medication, and water for months without an end. And the end result of which is a complete catastrophe with, over 100 now having lost their lives, at least with bodies at the disposal of the miners, and some have been surfaced. But clearly, from the testimonies of those underground, many more have perished without the prospect of their bodies being recovered, because they've perished from falling and, of course, drowning in flooded underground tunnels. All thanks to the police, their lies and fabrications to actually evade responsibility in this situation.
Right. But as things stand, we've heard arguments that this is more of a humanitarian issue as we learn more about the conditions of these mine workers underground. Maybe give us a sense of what you've learned so far, especially about the kind of conditions that they are under in this situation as well.
Look, what is very evident here, right? One is that, contrary to the reports that have been made by the police over months now, these miners cannot get out of that mine without any assistance, which assistance was done by a community rescue team that was chased away for months without an end by the police before, of course, it was ordered by court, but also under pressure from the community and many other human rights organizations. These miners also suffered, as I said, emaciation, dehydration, and of course, physical exhaustion from lack of essential life-saving food, medication, water. Just from the number of people that are dying, it is evident that, contrary to a report that the food that is sent there is more than adequate, is actually a luxury. This food is far from adequate, which are the reports we've been getting. And the idea, by the way, that these mine workers are refusing to come out, forward. Because let's be clear, hundreds, that is approximately about 2,000 that have come out of different shafts. Very few of them have been charged, and only those that have been charged, of course, have been charged for lack of documentation. And we have seen in the last week that those that were sentenced, all their sentences were wholly suspended, and actually they've just been deported. So this idea that we have hundreds of miners engaged in a mass suicide just to evade what? A free release, and of course 2-3 days in jail, is a complete lie and completely outrageous. And I think the people of this country have got to decide: are we here deciding that we need to kill hundreds of the miners just in order to address the crisis of unclosed and improperly closed mines abandoned by the big corporations that are being held to account, that are being aided by this government in continuing to obtain the mining license? Look at this company that is actually currently the owner of this mine. I mean, Val Main Reef, Main Reef and so on. I think that's the name of the company and so on. That company, all of the directors are either facing a court action, or a criminal action, right? But government is not only taking away their mining licenses, but in actual fact, they continue to allow them to operate in situation where it is clear that they are evading their corporate responsibility wherever they are. I've dealt with them at Blackford Isaac mine, where they've simply also abandoned the mine there, and they're doing that everywhere where they are, and that's a problem.
Yeah, but as we learn more about the conditions of these mine workers, of course, developments around various court cases pertaining to this scene out in Stilfontein have come to fore. Maybe give us your initial reactions to especially the North Gauteng having ruled or given this ruling to save these Stilfontein miners who are still underground. Would you say that this comes as a form of relief for many of the families who want their loved ones out?
It's a complete vindication of the position that we've always argued. And let's just be clear. So the Pretoria High Court did not make a ruling specifically, but what the court did, it made a stern warning to the respondents in this government, in this situation, being obviously the owners and of course the state, to say that the court is not going to listen and entertain any argument that seeks to evade the responsibility to save the lives of these miners who are clearly trapped and who clearly desperately need food, water, and medication to stay alive, but also that there is a responsibility, therefore, for these parties to make sure that there is a rescue. So in that particular application, the state then faced with this attitude of the court, they then made undertaking that having discussed with the Mineral Council, that is a former chamber of mines, that has also committed now to fund the professional rescue operation, that that professional rescue will commence in the next coming 2 days or soon after. But if that is not happening, we are going to be returned to court. But they've also been ordered that they should not interfere with the community and other charitable organizations supplying the miners with food, water, and medication pending that rescue, which, whether done by professional or by community, is obviously going to be taking days, if not weeks. And for that, miners need to be sustained and kept alive.
That's a very important point that you make. And as we wrap, maybe it brings us to my next question. So with these rescue operations expected to begin soon, what do you anticipate, especially as efforts ensure that many of the mine workers make it out alive?
Well, I mean, we are, absolutely feeling, grateful that the court made it very clear, because let's be clear about it. How did we have over 100 bodies trapped underground at the present moment? It is because the police and the mine owners dismantle the police system, that is a rope set up by the community to ensure a supply of food, water, and medication, as well as a rescue through a manual pulling by a group of about 35 to 40 men on the surface of those in a much more dire situation to ensure that they don't die underground. Now, they dismantled that, they didn't provide alternatives. For 3 weeks, the miners were not getting any additional supply, and in fact, police in media continued with the propaganda that miners have more than enough. Let's be clear about it. The death of these miners should not come as a surprise. We call it a massacre because the signs were obvious. You just have to apply common sense. I mean, how much of water do you need a day to be able to live? We were told that a 5 milliliter of water can sustain, 500, bottles of small bottles of water can sustain about 800 miners over a period of 2 weeks, meaning a miner can survive by less than half of that small bottle over a period of 3 weeks. That is outrageous. And it is that decision that has killed these miners. And we must be absolutely clear that this police and the government are solely and immediately responsible for the death of these miners.
Mr. Sebei, thank you so much for your time in shedding light on these pressing issues, where, of course, the North Gauteng High Court has ordered that mine rescue services begin operations, this to rescue illegal miners in shafts 10 and 11 at the Buffelsfontein Gold Mine. This is in Stilfontein in the northwest.